With the Hawks going to Miami to play the Heat in this play-in tournament game in the Eastern Conference, who do you think is going to win and why?
I mean, I got Miami clear as day. I mean, I don't have this as a close game at all. The last couple of years, whenever Atlanta has gone to Miami in a playoff atmosphere, it has not gone well for Atlanta. They get very physical with Trae Young. They force him to turn the ball over. He shoots very inefficient from the field whenever he goes up against this physical defense. I mean, you put Jimmy Butler on somebody like a Trae Young. I mean, you got the height advantage, you got the weight advantage, and then, of course, Jimmy's a very gritty and big shit talker getting in Trae's ear. And unless Trae pops off for 40, 50 points, I don't think that this game is going to be close. I know that they've acquired DeJounte Murray. I know that John Collins was at one point on the trade block, but he found a way to bounce back this year. Maybe not to an all-star level, but to kind of give Trae some assistance. Clint Capella's always been solid down low, but I just think that the overall experience with Miami, the physical capabilities of what that team is able to provide, especially being coached by Eric Spoelstra, I just think that they are not necessarily ready to make a run. I just think that they are a little bit higher in the power poll in terms of where I think they stand in terms of like the Eastern Conference. I think Miami is just that much better. I like Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. I like Jimmy Butler in a must-win game. I mean, everybody knows, everybody, I don't know about everybody actually. Let me not say that. Let me rephrase. A lot of people that I talk to agree with my mindset that Jimmy Butler is a very underrated player. And earlier, not this year, but earlier last year when we had my boy Mike Casada guest star on the show, we all agreed that Jimmy Butler is just a different breed of basketball player. Like that is a person that belonged in the 80s and the 90s era because of the mindset that he has. And when Jimmy is in the playoffs, he just jumps into another category. Like he is a superstar when it comes to the postseason because he just turns it on. And I forgot who was talking. I don't know if it was Steven Jackson on his podcast with Matt Barnes or Kevin Garnett on his podcast with Paul Pierce. I think it was actually Kevin Garnett now that I'm remembering. There's just a different gear to Jimmy in the playoffs. And when that gear is turned on, it's a whole different person. So for me, I think it's going to be not necessarily a blowout, but if you can get into Trae Young as physical as humanly possible, Jimmy Butler gets it going, Bam Adebayo can get it going. I think that Miami handles Atlanta, and I think that the narratives that Trae Young potentially could be moved this offseason are going to be looming. And if Miami embarrasses Atlanta, I think Trae Young may be on another team come next season, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, Kev, I agree with you on this one. I do think that Miami is going to get this win, and they would clinch the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference because Miami's the 7th seed, Atlanta's the 8th
Atlanta's
seed.
the eighth, yeah.
Then Atlanta would basically play for their playoff lives then at that point if Miami were to win. But no, I'm with you 100% on this one. I will say I don't expect this to be a massive blowout by the Heat. I think it's going to be competitive, but I think at the end of the day, Kevin really hit it on the head as far as I see it. I think when it comes to Jimmy Butler, he's the one that elevates his game, especially when it comes to the playoffs. I mean, obviously, we remember when the Heat were in the bubble, they were in the NBA Finals, and Jimmy Butler was single-handedly carrying this team to get one victory over the Lakers when they were facing a potential sweep. But when it just comes to Jimmy is that one player you just love to have at your disposal, especially in playoff time. And I think in this game against the Hawks, I think he's going to elevate to the point where I think he's going to be extremely efficient from the field. Obviously, he's got a great mid-range game. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a couple three-point shots. I know that's not his specialty, and I imagine if he finds a quick lane to get to the hoop, he's going to take advantage of it as soon as possible. I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy drops somewhere around 30, 35 points against the Hawks. But when it comes to the role players for both teams, I'm actually expecting the three-point shot to be a pretty big element in this game, simply because when it comes to Trae Young, obviously you have to respect his three-point shot. If Kev is right, where I think the Heat are going to focus on Trae, then you're going to have to kick it out. Then you're going to have to focus on guys like Bogdanovich. You're going to have to focus on guys like DeJounte Murray. And we're going to see whether or not these guys are going to rise to the occasion to be able to step up for Atlanta. But I think that playoff atmosphere in Miami is going to be too much to overcome. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see guys like Max Strus, a pop-off. Now, Max Strus, for me, could potentially be their X factor in Miami because he has the potential to get really hot behind the three-point line, especially if he's given good opportunities. that's somebody to potentially look out for. Obviously, you've got Tyler Hero on top of that. Um, Tyler Hero's been very consistent throughout his NBA career so far. He's had some big moments in the playoffs throughout his early NBA career. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops potentially 15, 20 points, knocks in about 3 or 4 3-pointers. And then, I'm looking at this one-on-one matchup down low to kind of get away from the 3-point element. This one-on-one battle that's going to take place between Clint Capella and Bam Adebayo, I think it's going to be very interesting because, both of these guys I think are going to have a huge battle down low. It's going to be a huge battle for just position and trying to get rebounds. And, when it comes to Clint Capella, you always have to respect his shot blocking capabilities. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple of blocks against the Heat. But I think that Bam does present an offensive challenge that Clint's going to have to contend with. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bam probably drops somewhere around 15, 20 points and maybe gets somewhere around 10 to 11 rebounds in this game. But overall, I'm just, when I think of this game and how I see it play out, if you were to play this game out 100 times, I would say the Heat probably win this one 70% of the time. And I'm going to roll with the Heat. I think the Heat clinch the 7th seed. They move on to the playoffs. And then that would present the Hawks pretty much a do or die situation on whoever would win the Bulls and Raptors game that takes place on Wednesday night. But I got the Heat in this one, and I think they win this one relatively comfortably, but I don't think it's going to be just an outright blowout. But the Heat will advance as far as I see it.